Sathvik, welcome to the show, man. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good deal. So some big news from you all this week. Actually want to start with a little bit of your background first. Just kind of introduce us to your story and kind of how this whole thing with Unocoin got started.
Yeah, sure. So I did my MBA from University of Melbourne in 2008. Just after that, I got a partnership form with my brother where I was offering custom scripting services in a virtual world called Second Life. So it's like 3D environment, and once people log in, they see themselves as an avatar, and they can meet other people. I mean, which are the other avatars that are around you is actually like played by some other real person behind them. So what I used to do there was that, let's say if someone is constructing a virtual home, I used to do the home automation for them. And let's say if someone is constructing a game, I used to make the game work, etc. So I did that for about 4 years, and I just had a bunch of developers with me helping this. And the way we earn money in Second Life is through a closed loop currency called Linden dollars. And about $250 Linden is $1 American. And the only way I could get that money to India was through PayPal. So which used to charge me about 3.9% of the transaction fees, and another 3% as a conversion fees from the remaining American dollars to Indian rupees. So that was like 7% of the money that was going away month on month for about 4 years. So that significantly started to add up. And that is when I started looking at what are the alternatives to actually do the transaction from one country to one country without foregoing such a huge piece of the pie. So that made me stumble upon Bitcoin. I initially took a little bit of break to read more about this because I'm a techie by nature. I wanted to know all pieces of how things work without anyone in between. Right? So, and then I was looking at what exactly is happening in the Bitcoin space in India. So got to know about a meetup that was happening in that weekend, and that is where actually I met my rest of the co-founders for Unocoin. So this was in the year 2013 again. So it is also one of the very interesting years when you see the price chart of the Bitcoin, where the price has gone from $13, maybe $16 up to $1,050. So because we were having these meetups every weekend. We actually started seeing getting more and more people every weekend, and it was almost like a conference by itself, these meetups. While we could discuss great things about Bitcoin.
And what city were these meetups in?
Bangalore, yeah. So while we could talk great things about Bitcoin, there was actually no place where people could just get easy access to it, and even though people wanted it. And some people started bringing some cash in their pockets or duffel bags, hoping that someone else who is coming for the meetup might have mined some Bitcoins. So that was like a stretch. And me and the other co-founders for Unocoin thought that is not the way the people should have access to Bitcoin. It should be much better because, say, for example, US had Coinbase, and UK had Bitstamp, and say Japan at that time had Mt. Gox, etc. So there should be a better way, and we thought of that as a market opportunity, and we started Unocoin. And we did a few other things like Bitcoin mining and physical Bitcoins, etc. But that didn't really go very far. But that helped us to learn more about this technology and have some community around us. But the most successful and long-standing, obviously, has been Unocoin.
Yeah, so that's how 2013. Good stuff. A meetup, people bringing cash, trying to figure out how they can get some Bitcoin. Very cool. And how many of that co-founding team were there that met at that meetup and then that became Unocoin? Was it 4 or 3?
Yeah, it was 4 of us actually. So yeah, we all met in that meetup. And actually, I mean, one another co-founder I knew since before. So I am the one who took him. But the others were there, and we kind of felt very good synergy among ourselves, where one could do the marketing and product, the other could do the business development. I mean, one had the skill set of, say, compliance and operations and finances, and I was a techie with a small team with myself for developing the product and taking forward. So it was like perfect Super 4, I think, and that made it go. So after we decided that we will do this ourselves by creating a platform, it only took me about 2.5 months from zero to actually launch. So we launched this in the in the conference that we did through in Bangalore in December 2013. So we called it as Global Bitcoin Conference, and it's actually the first Bitcoin conference in entire Asia. So yeah, so we did that conference, and we launched it, and we did the traction and everything came up automatically quite well, because we were the only guys.
Heady times. First Bitcoin conference, we're launching a company. How many people were at that first conference?
We had about 200 of them. So interestingly, we also did invite the regulators like Reserve Bank of India, then SEBI, CBI, CAD. So we just sent invites, and many of them actually turned up because this was very new for everyone, and they wanted to know, like, it exists, but what it is about was everyone's question.
Sure.
So yeah, so we had invites from everyone. It was like really successful conference.
Yeah. Reserve Bank of India I think will come up a little bit later too. But so very cool. That's cool. Kind of intro to 2013. Heady times. So I guess just in the last couple weeks, y'all have been in the news again. I don't think you're doing a conference right now, but you've kind of got attention for a new fundraise, and so want to kind of hit on that next. So. We've seen kind of, I think, some momentum in terms of capital going into India, especially for exchanges in the last 6 months or so. We have had an acquisition and 4 or 5 other investments. And so y'all are kind of the news now. Draper, DCG, some big names. Take us through kind of that process, where it sits now, and just kind of how you're how you're thinking about kind of these last 2 weeks.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, we got our first round of investment in 2014 itself. So that was about $250,000, and our second round of investment that was at 2016 for about $2 million. And
so seed round in 2014, 250 round in 2016. I guess DCG led the round in 2016.
That's right. Yeah.
Who led the seed round?
Yeah, that was led by Bloom Ventures. So this time, this we are calling it a Series A round. And actually, for association with Drapers is not very new for us. So we are actually the alumni of Boost.vc, so which is the at that time Bitcoin and blockchain only accelerator, right? And which were actually run by Drapers. And then Drapers are also the limited partners for Bloom Ventures, who were our lead in the last round. So this time we just have their direct investment and direct involvement, I think. So this is, I think, it is their trust about the team and the potential of the country, what it looks like. And but it took quite a bit of time this time as well to convince them that they should be investing with us, and we are the best that they could get for a country like India. So yeah, this is where we are. Things finally worked in our favor. In fact, see when we see the regulatory battle that India really had to face against the Reserve Bank of India at Supreme Court. So we just got lucky to get the verdict just before the lockdown, right? So India went into lockdown on March 24th, but our verdict was only on March 4th, which was like only 3 weeks before that. And just in case if we missed that particular date, in all likelihood, we probably even today we may not have seen the verdict, right? So in that way, we got lucky there. And and after that, there was a little challenges to make everything come back to normal, given there is a lockdown everywhere, right? So on one side, we have the happy news, everyone wants to get in, and everyone is in home. So that was a kind of very tricky situation. But our team, I would say, I should appreciate them that even though we had a very small team because of a couple of rounds of downsizing, so all of us have put really great efforts to not make that deficiency of not going to the office to be really seen. It could be some hiring, or it could be operations. One should be customer care and training of new employees. So everything had to be done like new in a new style. So that was a kind of a thing faced. But anyway, so things have as of 2 months ago itself, it was completely normal. And now we have the investment from our new believers. So I think the road ahead looks much more brighter now.
Yeah, good stuff. New believers, always good to have on board. So thanks for that framing. Also want to go back a little bit and kind of the story of the last 7 years has been, pretty up and down, basically because of kind of shackles being put on and taken off by, regulations in India, essentially nothing, about, the teams operating there or the appetite for Bitcoin from kind of retail and people in India. So take us back a little bit to kind of the timeline of started in 2013, first Bitcoin conference in Asia, first exchange that gets traction. That next couple of years, you raised some funding in 2014. Kind of talk about the growth trajectory from 2014 to 2016. Maybe like some customer numbers if you can. And then kind of frame the competition in terms of other exchanges and Bitcoin businesses in India. Obviously you were the first and emerged as one of the leaders over that time frame. But maybe talk a little bit about that, and then what changed 2016 to 2018 in terms of regulation, and just walk us through it. I think most of the people I've talked to in the last I guess during the pandemic are, these companies that started in 2018 or, after that last kind of ruling about banks dealing with cryptocurrency entities. So interesting to hear you as the person who started it all.
So when we started Unocoin, our idea was not to really run it like a startup, so which goes through various rounds of funding and keep growing its valuation, etc. It was very new model for me, in fact, because the previous business I was running it like a very traditional business of you provide services, you get your revenues, and you do your expenses, and you take the remaining money home. But
crazy idea,
Yeah, so it was that simple. So after we started Unocoin, I think in just 10 or 11 days after we started Unocoin, Barry Silbert wrote to us, what are your expansion plans? Are you looking for funding? He said, why would we need funding? And that was the first question that I was asking myself. But initially we did not really bother about it. It was everything is way too new, and we had to literally take a tutorial session from one of our lawyers about how the startup should work to even start. And how the equity will be given out, and how it gets diluted over a period of time. So that was all is very new. In fact, me and my one of our co-founders, Harish, are from a town called Tumkur. So it is a very small town with like zero IT anywhere, and it is about an hour and a half from Bangalore. But because we are from this town, we continue to stay here only with our families even today, and travel to Bangalore on a regular basis. So that kind of had given very less exposure regarding like how the funding methodology and how the startups itself work. But yeah, after like couple of months, we realized that yes, we need money, and we have an email from someone who actually wanted to give us some funding.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
So then we pick up that conversation, and he was available almost within a couple of days for a call. So then we pitched that, and at that time we were so small and so new, so we didn't really know how to do the projections, or he was really not asking for that. Anyway, he was only asking what is your vision, etc. But that pretty much, given that we are the only guys in India, and we have started this company, and at least we had some background of being in IT business before this, and with the right team of right team members as co-founders. So I would definitely see that. Yeah. So we got his investment. So just after that, the first thing we did was to launch our merchant gateway, where both online merchants and offline merchants can accept Bitcoin as a mode of payment. So the online merchants could do it through the API calls, and we were also giving them the checkout pages. They could even create a receipt or a receipt for money on our platform itself, etc. And for offline merchants, like for physical brick and mortar merchants, right? So we created a mobile app for both Android and iOS. So it is like, we call it as Unocoin POS. So people would just, those merchant would just type, okay, if it is 5,000 rupees, then he would just say 5,000, and in the next screen there will be a Bitcoin address and the amount that he want to request from the end user. And once the transfer is made, it will show that okay, it's like done, and the customer can walk away from there with this product or service. So yeah, we created that, and it got like really good traction. We got very diverse set of merchants for that. So it started from a school which wanted to accept Bitcoin as a safe mode of payment. Then we had a travel agency which was accepting it for flight bookings, and there was a online portal for bus travel that started accepting it. So then we had a website which was selling the digital coupon codes for well-known e-commerce websites, though they were accepting it. And then we had server space and rental company that sort of like this. We got a very wide range of merchants. We kind of totaled about 200 to 2,300 merchants in this over a period of about 4 years. So then one of the biggest challenges are the comments from Indians, at least because probably the way we are brought up is that okay, they are fine to invest today for how much ever money they have that they want to invest, but what if the price goes down by 10% in about a few weeks, right? So what, 20%, 30%. So if you see in the years like 2013 and 14, there were days where the Bitcoin price used to crash like 40-50% just without even warning, right? Yep. So, and it used to go up as well, but it was not for faint-hearted at all. So now comparatively, it's very good. It usually goes up and down by a couple of percentage on an average day. So it was not so on those days. So then we came up with a solution that okay, let's do something like systematic buying plan for our Indians, where our customers can buy smaller pieces of Bitcoin for a specific amount of Indian rupees at some frequency of like daily, weekly, or monthly. So that particular product that we launched in 2015 was a really huge hit. So within the first 3 to 4 months after the product was launched, we had more than about 8,000 to 10,000 users who were using it, and they were just going for 50 rupees, which is like less than $1. So that was a kind of Bitcoin they were trying to buy, but they were doing it like daily. So which means per month they had to spend about $20 to $25. That's pretty much it, and they keep on acquiring smaller pieces of Bitcoin daily forever. And they used to just fund their account, which is like INR balance, usually like second or third or fourth of the month. So which essentially is showing that they are just using their salary money to part away about $30-40.
Yeah, and at this point, it's a bank transfer of INR to an account at Unocoin, and that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
and it's interesting to hear. I didn't realize that you all had focused that much on the payment side too, because obviously, you mentioned Coinbase earlier as one of our counterparts in the U.S. at that time frame. They were big on payments, onboarding, people like Dell and Overstock and whatnot. I didn't realize that was happening in such a big way in India also.
Yeah, that's right. So and one other thing, like how I was telling about my story, right? So how I was like a freelancer and I was getting paid, etc. So then we had a huge set of freelancers who were signing up on our platform because now they have the ability to convert Bitcoin into Indian rupees. But the challenge that they faced is that they need to stay awake in the midnight, because it's usually they'll be working for some American corporation or something like that, and they do their payments in their daytime, right? So and if they did the Bitcoin, then they have to be awake to sell it without taking the risk of volatility till the morning. That itself was actually sometimes huge. Right. So what we did for them was we created a feature called auto sell, so which gave these users a unique address, and if any Bitcoin comes into that address, it just gets sold at that price. So don't worry about waking up. So that itself actually, we had no less than about 5,000 users who took that, which essentially means most of them are like freelancers, where whenever payment comes in, it just like liquidates and gets the money to the bank account. So when this happened, because we were doing the processing of Indian rupee payments within 1 or 2 working hours. So most of the times, by the time they wake up, sometime like 9 a.m. or something like that in the morning, they already have the money in their bank account. Like everything happened just like magic, right? Yeah. So that was experience a lot of our users really liked. And it was a very cautious decision that we took to just keep the buy and sell on our platform and not to do anything like Mount Gox or Bitstamp, where you really need to understand the bid and ask orders, and there is a spread, and you have to read the trees to understand. It was little complicated, and on one side, Bitcoin itself was very complicated. So we thought that we just keep it at least technology is complicated. At least let us keep the interface simple. Was our initial idea. But by the year like 2000, late 2017, the market in India was matured enough to actually do something more advanced like an exchange. So we had built that before already and kept it ready. So when we need to press the button kind of thing. So along with that exchange for Bitcoin, that is the first time when we launched anything else apart from Bitcoin. So first 4 years was like purely Bitcoin, right? So then we launched the Ether and Ripple and I think the Bitcoin Cash and a few other coins at that point of time. And it slowly started picking up, and 2017 was one of the great years for the entire industry, obviously for us as well. So for a few weeks, the queue that we had to process for our new customers for their KYC was as long as 21 days, right? So they literally, they would have say applied for the verification, say by October 1st, and even today it is not processed. So that's a kind of delay that was there, and that kind of delay obviously people could not withstand because the price was going up like every hour. In 2017, 2017 last quarter
2x, was like 20 days later. Yeah.
It could be easy, yeah. But anyway, so that made us to take more employees. Everything going good so far. And
this is 2017. What is the kind of ecosystem in India look like at that point in terms of, I guess, the kind of competitive landscape? So y'all are the first and the biggest. ZPay is
we have been the first and the biggest when it comes to we were the first and biggest when it comes to the customer base. So our competitor, one of the biggest competitor was ZPay, and they initially started as a wallet, and then they converted their service into like buy and sell like us. And there was another competitor called Coinex, which don't exist right now. They have just deviated to something else. But however, they are the ones who started the exchange. So till then, people really didn't know much about the exchange. So whatever was there in India is all they knew. In fact, simple buy and sell. Yeah, and some people knew about crypto to crypto. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and how many, I guess, total customers do you think there were kind of before the bubble in 2017? So y'all are raising money in 2016. You're kind of looking at the growth of the market. At that point, how many Indian holders of Bitcoin?
So we definitely had more than 1 million customers already at that time.
Yeah.
And we were adding no less than 10,000 customers a day. So that was a kind of trajectory that we were seeing.
Yeah.
And there was not much regulatory unclarity at that point of time. So people very much knew that, see, even today it continues to be unregulated, but at least there was no day-to-day fear that what this looks like and what will happen in the future. So that kind of panic really was not there, I think. So it was comparatively a free market. I was talking about the conference, right? So in the conference, we invited a lot of other regulators, including Reserve Bank of India, SEBI, and a few others ones, right? So after they did attend our conference, they went back, and after like a week or so, there was a warning to the public saying, this cryptocurrency things exist. We know something called Bitcoin exists, but it is risky because of financial risk exists and security risk exists. So that was just a warning. So nothing more than that. So, but the same warning happened, I think 3 more times. Again in 2014, and once in 15, and once in 17. So, but in 18, all of a sudden, the Reserve Bank of India came up with a circular to the banks. Fiat onboarding and offloading was one of the lifeblood for us, because that is where everything starts and everything ends, right? So they came up with the notice that the bank should not provide their services for cryptocurrency exchanges and its customers. And they just gave like 3 months of notice, saying that within 3 months they have to exit the relationships. And that made all the exchanges to lose their bank accounts at one shot. And that really
and the headlines at that point are, India bans Bitcoin, which wasn't, precise. It was,
it was very, very misleading. It was very misleading. So the notice is not even for the citizens. It was only for banks controlled by them. So they didn't declare, or I don't think they can even declare like that. But it was not like declaration of the legal status of Bitcoin. It is like ring fencing the banks, so that if something really goes wrong in this industry, then they don't want public to blame the central bank or the banks. So
and the banks are under the purview of the Reserve Bank, and so they have the authority to make that make that the rules of the game. And so that kind of comes as a blind side. You have 3 months, and your fiat on and off ramps are not going to be legal anymore, essentially. So what happens at that point to Unocoin and the kind of exchange hierarchy that had been built with y'all as one of those leaders? What are you thinking at that point?
So that really had to take it up in the core to figure out, like, on one side it is like if something is not declared as illegal, then the bank should not be restricting us not to do it, right? So that was kind of constitutional rights, human rights that exist in India. But it was kind of a violation for that. And on the other side, we saw Zeppay going out of the country. We saw CoinEx there that completely shut down the business itself and diverted to something else. And there were two or three others new players that were born at that time who were trying to do some peer-to-peer trading activity, like connecting two users, and one user was sending money from their bank account to another user's bank account without getting it through the exchange and such. So even that activities was kind of against the notice, but banks did not know why some money is moving from one account to one account. So they just processed it without knowing it. So we thought that, even knowingly or unknowingly, we don't want banks to do the mistake. So that's the kind of,
so on that point, I guess you do have a couple of those that went to that kind of peer-to-peer sort of loophole in a way, are still around and are it seems like it worked for them as a way to develop a customer base when these fiat on off ramps were shut off. And y'all looked at that and didn't say, that's not a good idea because of the user experience or something like that, or we can't put our resources and build that quickly because we have this existing infrastructure. You looked at it and said that's not worth the risk of angering the banks or them figuring out what's going on and hurting our relationship moving forward. Okay, interesting.
So that's what happened. So then we actually came up with one very intelligent idea that why don't we just use the machines which can collect the money and disperse the money, right? So which is very similar to what the banks use, that we call it as ATMs, right? So then we just took one machine. We bought a new machine. So we were actually the first non-bank buyer of that machine in entire India. So because no one, for forever only banks need it. So who else would ever need it, right? So we took that, and within India there are some cash limits of how much transactions you can do in cash every day. So that's all fine. Everything can be programmed into that same machine. So then we thought, okay, we are just naming it as Bitcoin. It's called Unocoin ATM. So initially that was the name we gave. So then we figured out we shouldn't have called it as ATM. So ATM actually is like the regulated machine. In fact, when it is installed by banks, because the Reserve Bank of India, which is central bank, sees these ATMs as a smaller branches of the bank. So where the money can be collected, money can be distributed, and few other banking transactions can be done. So there is a license that the banks have to take before they install an ATM machine. So this is on the regulatory part of the things. But as far as the media is concerned, they start saying, "Oh my God, there is an ATM without the license." I said, "Okay, it's a machine. At the end of the day, I can make a human stand there to do the same thing." But obviously, doing it through a human was not really a secured way of doing. But the media just didn't stop there. It was like a hot cake, I think, for them. So they kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And one fine day, while we still had to go live with that particular ATM, we were just like at the end of the testing phases, and things were all being figured out. Then we were then we were called for an inquiry. So actually, Harish, our co-founder, was called first. So when we went there, yeah. So where is your license? Do you know you have to take a permission? We said, they have to take permission when it is being installed by the bank, not by a private company like us. For us, it is just like a machine. It just takes money on behalf of us, and whenever we instruct, it gives the money out, and that's pretty much it. So they didn't listen, they retained him, and then I had to go there. Even they retained me. So they just made a huge news saying that, well, this kind of machine should not be there, etc. And it took us actually 2 days to really explain from end to end how this works and convince them, show them on the internet what this is all about. And we have to go from what is Bitcoin all the way up to how this machine is just a machine. At the end of the day, it just take the instructions from us and do what we say for it. So that was a huge episode by itself, and it just got the entire the story got covered by, I think, every international media, Bitcoin media, in fact, at that point of time. But then, the way it went, it just made everyone so much confused that we didn't really want to bring it back on the ground to make it happen. Mm-hmm. So we thought maybe on the other side, we have the case that we are fighting anyway. So let's complete that anyway. The justice will be in our favor. So we thought at that time. So whatever I'm talking about happened in October 2018. So at that time, we thought we may take another 3 or 4 months for us to make sure that the verdict is given.
So this Reserve Bank ruling about banks interacting with crypto companies, you're fighting this in court now. It's making its way through. You think it's going to take 2 or 3 months? October 2018.
Well, it was already filed. It was already filed like 4 or 5 months ago. And given the progress, it was actually initially the progress was good, in fact. So we thought maybe in another 3 or 4 months, this entire notice will be slashed down anyway. Then the banks will get back to normal. So why to bother about creating these kinds of physical machines, which we need? Well, we will need it in like every nook and corner of many cities, maybe a few hundreds of them. And it was like very infrastructure expense as well. So whatever we tried to test itself really went haywire. So we thought, okay, let us just fight this through, be done with it, and then get back to business. So then Harish more or less our co-founder Harish more or less shifted to Delhi, so where the Supreme Court exists, because see for the lawyers, right? So the internet technology is new for them. And how exactly this technology, and on the other side, the present law of the land. So how to see how the correlation exists, and how the exchanges function. So all those things are way too new for them. So someone had to stay there and explain at every step about how the business works first, so that the lawyers knows what to say in the court, right?
Yeah. So is there a coalition of y'all who are kind of leading this?
It was
and running this.
Yeah. And also, it was saying that, right? So we are fighting through association on one side, right? On the other side, what got affected is the human rights, that the humans have the right to do what is not illegal in the country, right? So, and cryptocurrencies were not illegal, but we didn't have the right to do it. So it was like a conflict, right? So, but the association itself cannot fight, because the association is not a human. So association cannot say that human rights are affected. So there needed to be a human, and even that case was filed by Harish, saying that I am a human and my rights are affected. I want this notice to be cancelled. Yeah. So we had we actually had 2 notices there. So one is the one saying the human rights are affected, and then the exchanges are getting really affected, even though they haven't really done anything wrong. And Reserve Bank of India cannot just come and say that they cannot give bank accounts. It's not their. It's not correct. It's very unconstitutional. So it took about more than a year since then. We had to undergo one more round of, let's say, downsizing, and really wait for that verdict. I mean, every time the date comes, we hope that, okay, this time it ends. Half of the things are done again, whatever needs to happen. The next date is at least 3 to 4 weeks away. So that kept on happening, say, about some 8 to 10 times, in fact.
Yeah.
And finally, in January, the hearing and everything is done. But finally, the verdict, they took like a month or so. And finally came up with that it's allowed, this is unconstitutional. So the bank should not, the bank should be allowed to give accounts for these exchanges and their customers.
Yeah. So this case is making its way up to the Supreme Court. It is, I guess the trial finishes in January, and then we have early March. The Supreme Court rules on this, and it rules on his individual case and the broader case.
Yeah. So I mean, one is association, which is saying that there are so many people who have got affected, the business have got affected, the employees have got affected. So that pretty much was one case on one side, and on the other side, the human rights are affected, right? So for both of them, the judgment was same, in fact. So they just came out that, okay, yeah, it should be allowed. And actually, we had a quite strong banking relationships all across, including this time, but they were not allowed to give us a bank account because of the notice.
Right.
So just after the verdict, the same day evening, we got the access to our bank accounts, where we could start accepting money from our customers, and we were kind of back to business.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was like winning in a movie, I think. So in fact, it is so much like a movie that it was a 3-judge bench. And in the verdict, at the end, he don't say verdict; he says climax in the judgment. So
the climax of the film, the climax of the story arc.
Yeah. So the judge himself have felt like it's a movie. It's a nail-biting finish. So that is the terms that the judge has used to describe how things went in the court, and how it eventually gave out this verdict. So yeah, that is like a very historical win.
For sure, yeah, for sure. And interesting to have been right at the center of it. Also, it had to be kind of, gut-wrenching to see it take longer and longer. Where did the so March 2020, can you frame like the difference in the business, the business at that point from 2018? You have all these customers who are signed up, but, have been inactive for a year. You have other exchanges or peer-to-peer type exchanges that have popped up to kind of use that loophole and are gaining maybe some of those customers. So what are you thinking in March? You get your banking relationship back and you're thinking, all right, full steam ahead now, or you're assessing the damage and figuring out how to move forward. What's your mindset then?
Yeah, I mean, we had to do everything at once, so more or less. So we figured out that there is a small share that of customer share that we had that had gone out because they were fine to do peer-to-peer, even though we did not support it ourselves, right? So, but however, we continue to have the access to the complete customer database anyway. So we kind of informed them. But I mean, if I have to compare it with 2017 and 18, I don't think any exchange, forget about Indian exchanges. So any exchanges is really back there yet, right? So 2017, 18, and I mean, later part of 2017 and earlier part of 2018 was like the best time for the entire crypto industry, in fact. So if I have to compare that, we definitely are not there yet. But on the other side, it's when we see new customers flowing in every day. So about 300 to 500 of them. So every day signs up, and we have the operations completely under control and in place. And we continue to work with our mission and vision of when we want to bring Bitcoin to the billion. That is our mission, and making money simple is our vision. So it continues to drive us, I think. So, but if I have to talk about numbers, we probably will be there at least 2017 levels, maybe in about like 6 months to 9 months, it looks like. So given that we have a new round of funding, we'll be able to be more aggressive now.
Yeah, for sure. And so that new round of funding has taken shape over the last 6-7 months or so. And really an all-star crew. You've got Draper involved, not just as an LP in a fund that's, leading around in 2016, but as a major part of this round, XBTO, who's a little bit more under the radar, but has made some, big investments in the space, including Deribit. Some big players there. Also in kind of the context of, you've had other big players making investments into exchanges in India over the past, 8 months as well, from BitMEX's parent venture firm to Coinbase Ventures. You have other exchanges that are looking to make their kind of play in India. Binance acquiring WazirX. How are you thinking about like raising money versus partnering with an exchange that's trying to get access to the market? I'm sure you have had discussions with some of the major exchanges around the world who are looking to break into India. Why go the route of raising a fresh round of venture funding, staying, I don't know if independent's the right word, but not tied to another, international exchange? Talk about kind of how you're thinking about the funds and kind of the current competitive landscape in India with, everyone wanting access to the market. You being one of the legacy companies that's had success there, but a lot more competition coming in. Just kind of talk us through your thinking on all this.
So I think it is definitely not either or. So either we want to do funding or partnership with the international exchanges and such. So I think it's more about doing everything. So just to stay relevant, right? So we will need the exchanges who could help us with liquidity and maybe sometimes your market making, or maybe technology and such. On the other side, you will need money to make sure you're surviving. You have the best talents in-house, and you're able to have enough working capital to keep the entire machine running as much smoothly as possible. So it's about doing everything at kind of same time. So like I said, on one side we got the verdict, and on the other side we almost had nothing. So we just like a very small employee base. So that is pretty much the end of it. We were just like 13 of us, as compared to 120 in our peak times.
Yeah.
Right? So then now we had to hire, and now again we are back to about 35 of us, and we just have all the required ingredients. It's about. It could be say other exchanges who want to enter India. So we have been talking to like different exchanges as well. How we could partner, or it could be about their own investment into the country and such, etc. So I think when it is right time, it'll happen, I guess. But till then, our more responsibility is about keep on building whatever we're building, and keep it ready either for the wall or for alliance, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. And is this round filled now completely?
No, it's like say 60% filled, maybe 65% filled or so. So we have some more gap that we could still take other investors. Yeah.
Yeah. So some good optionality there, which is nice to have sometimes. Retail base in India. You talked about Bitcoin being this exotic thing back in 2015. Maybe keep the interface simple and keep the trading aspect more simple. Here sitting in 2020, how are you kind of thinking about the sophistication of Indian retail traders? Are there institutions that are kind of a target customer segment for you? That customer base and kind of your product roadmap. I know y'all have had 1,000 things going on, so far, but as you look to, put this money to work, how are you thinking about kind of that customer base growing and product roadmap, over the next 2 years or so?
Yeah, I think for the both brokerage business, like earlier Coinbase model, and on the other side exchange business, like the Coinbase Pro model, right? So both of them have very, very logical progression. So the exchange, on one side, the normal say brokerage will be more looking at lending platform and then interest earning, and then it goes in that direction. On the other side, if you see the exchange, it will be looking at margin trading, and then it will have derivatives like the futures and options and CFDs. So it will take other kind of progression. But I think so we as an exchange have to more or less go in the very similar path. I mean, we may be able to innovate a few things to make the things better, or maybe some new things altogether. But at the end, the backbone continues to be very visible in front of us. So this is the kind of steps we'll have to take. But we have to also recognize that we almost lost like 2 years in between. So the entire country is more or less 2 years younger in crypto as compared to the rest of the world. So which really means we will need a lot of support also from international players to make sure that we are able to catch up. The market opportunity is not lost, and everything is kept abreast to keep swimming forward, I think. So that's pretty much how I see this. And India, I mean, if you see the population of the country, like it's like 17% of the world. In the country which is of the size, say about 1/3 of United States. So whatever resources exist in United States, it is shared by about 15 people in India. So given that kind of population, I think there cannot be a better opportunity for us to bring some kind of change or revolution in this industry, in this country. And that has also been one of the reasons we didn't really look for other. I mean, we explored some to some extent when we didn't have the proper business because of banking restrictions. But we were never keen to do anything in other countries than India itself. I mean, if we being Indian, if we cannot crack India, we probably are doing wrong by just looking at other opportunities. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. And huge market. You touched on some of the numbers there, and that's one of the reasons that you've had outside capital kind of scrambling to get into the right plays as kind of the regulatory situation has cleared up. And any other you touched on it there. Any other kind of thoughts more broadly on where you see growth in Bitcoin in India over the next 2 years? There are massive numbers. We're entering kind of another bull run here. It's going to be fascinating to watch as a 2-year gap into another bull run is going to be kind of fascinating to watch. What do you kind of see numbers wise happening?
Yeah, it's too much of a roller coaster since at least like 4 years already. And I think because of various other reasons, the roller coaster will continue. It will never be a very smooth road going ahead. I mean, at what level the roller coaster happens, that is a kind of question. Whether if everything regulatory just like keeps the way it is, and if the roller coaster happens at the bull market and we have much more customers, and then we will that's a different kind of challenge. But if it happens at the regulatory level, then it's a little bit different level of challenge altogether, right? So that should be seen. But I've been given, India is one of the really good technology hubs. If you see like generally, right? So losing out on this kind of market, including where you don't have you're losing the employment opportunities, you're losing the investment opportunities, you're losing technology innovation opportunities. So that is like very costly for a country like India. So it is what it is my opinion about. And at the end of the day, everyone will find their alternatives. Either it could be like going to some other countries or figuring out how to do anything in India itself, which are similar but still without like violating the new laws that will ever come, etc. So I think given the way it is, the future looks very bright to me, and it's definitely a huge catch-up that we will have to do, and we will obviously need support from, it could be international players, it could be regulators, everyone, and hope that this time we will be able to just grow without being disturbed.
Yeah. And yeah, for sure. And so I guess in the past, the things that have disturbed the market have been kind of some of these, organizations that maybe operate with a little bit of independence from kind of the operations of government. When you talk about the Reserve Bank of India and then the Supreme Court stepping in and making their ruling, what's kind of and I'm sure you've spent a lot of time talking to people in government, not just in the central bank. What's kind of the sentiment from the people actually operating the government, and is there anyone who is talking about this publicly? Are you in touch with people frequently on kind of why this needs to be an industry that is let to flourish in India?
Yeah. I think if you see the market share of India when it comes to the crypto industry, we definitely don't have our share. So we may have like 1/100th of it or something like that. so which is like very negligible. So, and on the other side, as you know, the Supreme Court gave the verdict, and then everyone went to lockdown. And even today, people are not really vocal about a lot of things. So everything is happening just the concise of their home or in their offices, etc. So we have met quite a few of the members of parliament to talk about this particular thing needs some kind of say recommendations or categorization for India, but it is not moving. I mean, nothing is moving that fast where someone could like recommend it and bring it to the table or table yet. I think so, but they become like one of the key decision makers, the members of parliament. So who would obviously need to make up their mind that okay, we have to bring some kind of clarity to this particular industry, and for that to happen as well, the industry should grow, where it should be somewhat considerable within India for them to even make a note of it. So the next step is to keep growing. So in whatever way we see, I think that's the only logical way, and it can finally find some kind of salvation.
Yeah, and keep growing. You kind of this customer base for the exchange side, the brokerage side, the spot side. Any other of the products that you mentioned earlier that you see kind of potential for in India? You had the payments and merchant services. You had some of the DCAing with daily purchases. You had the contractor use case where people were accepting Bitcoin and converting it overnight. Any other interesting use cases that you're seeing for Bitcoin now outside of the exchange side?
Yeah, so the new ones that we have introduced now is people can use their Bitcoin to take loan, right? So it's very similar to Genesis trading, like how Barris company in US. So there will be the Bitcoin will be collateralized, and they'll be able to take some loan and withdraw it to the bank account and use it eventually, and then pay it back with interest to get the collateral release. So that is something that I strongly feel that it has a bright future. But it will take its time for that kind of new stream itself to grow, right? So on the other side, we also offer some kind of returns. Whoever want to keep their USDT as fixed deposits with us, right? Mm-hmm. So and then on our side, we manage about the loans, and on the other side, fixed deposits. So we can only do this for crypto, not for fiat, which would need some licenses and such. So these are two products which I think have a very strong need for in the country, but making sure the information is reaching all people, that an opportunity like this exists will continue to be a small challenge, given like lockdown and whatnot. And that is like still not back to normal, because even in the lockdown, if you see, we started like 2 to 3 months late than, I think we got affected 2 months late than the rest of the world, a lot of other countries. So it eventually, I think it could be by the end of year where things will be somewhat, everyone will be a little bit vocal about what they're trying to do and what are the next steps and such. And that is also the time when we need to introduce these products, or let's say reintroduce these products to public, that something like this exists and people can take advantage of it and such. So on the exchange side, when we are looking at introducing the margin trading in the future, but yeah, that's like the logical progression.
Yeah, gotcha. Any other kind of companies doing interesting stuff in India that maybe don't have the profile because of fundraising so far? Anything else you're seeing that's interesting in India outside of Unocoin?
I think the number of people who are working on blockchain itself in MNCs, like there are like really a lot of people, but most of them are stopping at POCs. But on the other side, there has been some startups which are doing really good in whatever they're doing, like Matic, who are trying to build the layer 2 solution on top of Ethereum and such. And there are a few others, a few other newcomers as well who are trying to do. And some of the exchanges are again trying to raise some funds by selling the tokens, utility tokens and such. So we don't really want to go that road yet, I think. So, but on the other side, we are also looking that probably there could be a really good demand in a couple of years for decentralized finances, and also the partly DEX and also the decentralized finances. So which we could be looking at a little bit more deeply as well. But till now, we haven't really seen the real need for it within the Indian ecosystem, because we are kind of a little lagging to really be able to catch up with the rest of the world. Maybe in about 6 months or 1 year, it becomes more evident about the market opportunity that would eventually exist for these two as well. So I mean, it's about going with the flow and keep growing. I think that's how this looks like.
Sounds easy. Sounds easy enough. I know you all have some battle scars to prove that it doesn't always, outside factors can come in. So it's good that it seems like that runway is now open, and excited to see how you all grow and what happens there. So good stuff. Our final question is a fun one. It's a recommendation. So it can be your hometown, which you mentioned, being a little bit off the beaten path. It can be Delhi, Bangalore. So a recommendation for someone who, may be there in the future to see, to do, to eat, to watch, just a recommendation.
I think they should know. I mean, no one should invest more money than they are willing to lose on one side. But on the other side, people should invest some time to learn about the cryptocurrencies. So if, let's say, there was one survey that we did where we were calling our customers to say, okay, you bought Bitcoin, do you know what it is? So that was our question. But a lot of 90% of the people could not really tell what Bitcoin is. At the end, they just see it as an investment opportunity. And I think the education also really matters. People should know what they're buying, right? And only then they'll be able to know its risks and such. So, and then we have a portal called unoversity.com, UNOVERSITY. So where we offer courses for Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum, the different jargons and such. People could just enroll free for everyone. So I think we are nowadays promoting that as well. Like, at least you go there and learn what is all about it. It is not just like thin air things, right? So it has its value, and its value is only learned if you know what it is. Else it is like nothing. It is just a number on your mobile phone. So yeah, this is what I would recommend. People should keep on getting more and more educated. And if you see like a country like US, I was there in US for a few times since last 2 years, right? Last 2-3 years. So whenever I go there, and even when I get to say travel in a cab, right? So one of the questions I normally, if I pick up a conversation, I ask him, "Do you know what is Bitcoin?" To my surprise, at least more than half of the cab drivers there know what is Bitcoin. And I'm talking about in the year 2016 and 17 itself. So, but when I try to do that here, it's close to zero. So actually almost no one knows, even though media has tried to cover exposure. Common man, it also has to, it's a trust-based thing as well, right? So I wouldn't, if I'm a common man, I just don't jump into this unless someone whom I trust tells me that it is good. So until that happens, which means it's like network effect on one side and education on one side. So that really needs to happen so that and until that happens, and until this pie size of India really goes big, it's also difficult for the regulators to take some kind of view. It is so small today that they are seeing a threat than the opportunity, right? So only when the market size become big and the threat remains whatever it is, then they see that the opportunity is bigger, right? So the opportunity really that pie has to grow, I think, so that eventually we keep working in the direction and let's see how far we go.
There you go. Learn University, and we're going to wait to see that knowledge gap in terms of market share rise in India. It's going to be exciting to watch.
Sure.
Well, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Nice talking to you today.
Good to talk to you, and hope to catch up as we see the market there grow exponentially over the next bull market.
Sure. Good luck. Thank you.